because you are constantly reaching in the dark. Every day you think about her. Where can she be? Is she free? Is she alive?
We have also worked with external investigative teams from Israel.
There has never been any evidence pointing to an attack by a wild animal. In that case, you would find blood traces. You would find signs of a struggle.
Sophia Kitzer was 21 on a dream safari in Uganda and just wanted to pee before dinner. That's when she vanished. A decade later, the Ugandan police are still hiding the truth. Days after her disappearance, her clothes were found torn to shreds and scattered like some kind of sick display, with her underwear hanging 5 meters up in a tree. There was no blood and no body, just a rushed excuse about wild animals and a case that got closed way too fast. But Sophia's mom found files they never meant for her to see, and what she uncovered changes everything. Then, just this summer, something else came out about the tour guide, and yeah, it's bad. Sophie's case was just blown wide open, and this time the theory is even darker. This is the infuriating story of Sophia Kitzer. Sophia Kitzer had just finished an 8-week internship at Lubaga Hospital in Kampala, Uganda, where she delivered babies, assisted in surgeries, and scrubbed floors, even when no one asked her to. She was 21, fresh out of med school in the Netherlands, and already dreaming bigger. In her final journal entry, she wrote that she wanted to come back. "I really wanted to say a warm goodbye to everyone in the hospital. All the people in the hospital are so sweet. I will truly miss them, and I hope to be back one day." Who knows, as a doctor of tropical medicine, she had said goodbye to the midwives with a hug. Then she got on the road with 2 fellow Dutch students and a Ugandan guide for a safari trip meant to celebrate the end of her internship. 6 days into that trip, Sophia stepped out to go to the bathroom and never came back. It was October 28, 2015. The group had just arrived at the Uganda Wildlife Authority's Student Center in Murchison Falls National Park. The sun was starting to set. Sophia, with a half-empty plastic water bottle she used for trash, told the others she was heading towards the latrines, just a short walk from the cabin. A ranger later said he saw her standing near them, gazing towards the river. That was the last time anyone saw her. 15 minutes later, when she didn't return, her friends got worried. They searched the camp, nothing. They then called the rangers, who kicked off a search party right away. But darkness was closing in, and the terrain was dangerous. This was Nile Basin, home to crocodiles, hippos, and lions. Sophia's mother, Margie, was still in Uganda at the time. She had just visited her daughter in Kampala and had flown back to the capital before Sophia began her safari. When she got the call that Sophia was missing, she was on the next flight to the north.
Almost immediately after Sophia's disappearance, there was a lot of speculation about wild animals.
The next morning, rangers found Sophia's plastic water bottle about 5 meters inland from the riverbank. Margie arrived at the camp that same day, accompanied by Dutch embassy officials, and joined the search. But what they found next only made things weirder. There was no blood, no tracks, no one heard screams or calls for help.
There has never been any evidence pointing to an attack by a wild animal. In that case, you would find blood traces. You would find signs of a struggle.
And on top of the lack of evidence, there was the most shocking fact yet. Sophia's underwear was in a tree. Some of her things were folded. What kind of animal folds clothes?
What is clear is that a proper investigation did not take place at the time.
Marjorie kept returning to Uganda 28 times by August of 2025. She says it's not just about grief, it's about truth. She believes something terrible happened out there and the Ugandan police are trying to hide it. And she's right, because the worst details hadn't even surfaced yet. Sophia Isabella Frederica Kitzer was born on April 2nd, 1994 in Amsterdam. She was the eldest of 3 children in a close-knit Dutch family raised by Margie Slickerman and Gerard Kitzer. Sophia was a smart and ambitious girl beyond her age from the get-go. As a kid, she had a wild love for theater and enrolled in the Amsterdam Youth Theater School for several years. Later, she shifted her focus to medicine. Her dream was clear: to become a tropical medicine doctor, combining science with her deep sense of empathy and curiosity about the world.
Sophia came to Uganda in August of 2015. She had just acquired her Bachelor of Medicine on her way to become a doctor.
Sophie didn't want to wait until residency to make a difference, so she flew to Uganda to begin her medical internship at Lubaga Hospital. She threw herself into her work, even learning Ugandan to better connect with the patients. She told her mother she might want to live there one day, but just days after her internship ended, she vanished on safari, and within 72 hours, Uganda's authorities had already written off the case. Despite no body, no blood, and no trace of Sophia near the river, the official conclusion was she had been attacked by wildlife. End of story. But there was a witness, an unnamed UWA, Uganda Wildlife Authority ranger, who claimed to have seen Sophia near the latrines before she disappeared. This same man told Margie he had also seen Sophia speaking to a different officer that night. That officer later denied the encounter, and authorities never followed up. He was never questioned, no DNA sample, no interrogation, nothing. Years later, Margie was contacted by another witness, an English lady who was also in Kidopo with her family that same night. On the night of Sophia's disappearance, the woman and her husband were woken up by a strange noise, so they went out to investigate. They found Sophia on the viewing platform and spoke to her. The lady described her as responsive, apologetic for making noise, polite, and very articulate. But at the same time, Sophia struck her as very vulnerable. The next morning, the couple spoke to both the warden and the tour guide about Sophia's well-being, and they advised them not to carry on with the safari until they ensure Sophia feels better. But none of the men took them seriously. Later, Margie would later learn that even Sophia's tour companions noticed her vulnerable state. Margie now writes, "It's very hard for us to understand why the tour guide took them to the student center that last night. He was clearly aware Sophia was not well. The companions told him around 6 p.m. that afternoon that they worried about her, and they had returned to Kampala." Now, to give you guys some context, Margie learned the whole story years after her daughter went missing. Meanwhile, an intimate detail about Sophia started seeping through to the Ugandan press. A bipolar disorder diagnosis she'd received when she was 16. Using this, Uganda's media began turning on Sophia. Articles started painting her as unstable. They pointed to her mental health condition and suggested she might have walked into danger, wandered off, or harmed herself. Some called her the crazy girl. Her mother was furious. "It pains us to see Sophia being described as a crazy girl. Sophia belongs to that category which in essence makes her unipolar. Only very occasionally does she experience hypomanic or manic episodes." She added, "Bipolar people are often talented high achievers. Just Google famous bipolar people. For what it's worth, it's true. From Churchill to Mariah Carey or Mel Gibson, several people have used this disorder to their creative advantage." Margie is certain her daughter was one of those people. She was already saving the world at 21. She couldn't wait to see Sophia's bright future. Margie said Sophia had experienced hypomanic episodes, meaning she sometimes became overstimulated in chaotic environments, but emphasized that she was never violent or self-destructive. In fact, she thrived under pressure. She was often described as structured, focused, and high-achieving, especially in Uganda, where she gained the admiration of her colleagues. But none of that seemed to matter. So here's her mom's theory.
She's very open and very outgoing and likes to make contact with everyone she meets, and that she may have met the wrong people.
After speaking to the wrong people, one of them may have been standing right next to her that night, because in July 2025, nearly a decade after Sophia vanished, a bombshell twist dropped in a Ugandan courtroom about the very man who was supposed to protect her. Michael Kinjambu was the tour guide who led Sophia's group through northern Uganda. He drove the vehicle, he chose the campsites, and on October 28, 2015, he was the one responsible for bringing her safely to the Student Education Center in Minchurzan Falls. But what no one knew until just last month is that Michael was not even licensed. In July 2025, Michael Kinjambu finally stood trial, not for Sophia's disappearance, but for his conduct during the trip. The court revealed revealed that he didn't hold a valid guiding license when he took Sophia and the others through the national parks. And more disturbingly, he had ignored several warnings about Sophia's mental health from the staff the night before she vanished. That warning came from Stephen Nadru, a retired Uganda Wildlife Authority ranger who had interacted with the group. According to him, Sophia had been seen banging on panels and trying to set grass on fire, possible signs of overstimulation or a manic episode. He said he flagged this to Michael directly. Michael never reported it. He didn't cancel the trip. He didn't call for help. Then he changed his plans. The prior night, instead of going to Kitgum, the driver took them to Gulu, a more resourceful place, as he later said. Very cheap, but no security. No, nothing really, unfit for tourists, thereby creating a situation that maximized the chance for accidents to happen. Painful, difficult, incomprehensible. The next day, Sophia disappeared. He was never held accountable until now. But even in court, he didn't have answers. And what he didn't say might be more terrifying than what he did. While Ugandan authorities dropped Sophia's case within days, her mother refused to let it die. Margie Slickerman didn't just send emails or wait by the phone. She got on a plane again and again. By August 2025, she had made 28 trips to Uganda, each one more desperate than the last. And with every visit, the official story started falling apart. Then, the most sickening detail came out. We have privately initiated DNA investigations on the items found. Significant amounts of male DNA have been found on all investigated items. Sophia's clothes, found scattered near the river, were never properly secured. No crime scene was ever secured there for an investigation, so Margie took matters into her own hands and paid for private DNA analysis herself. That's when it happened. The test came back with a male DNA profile. First, Margie ruled out the Dutch students on the trip. They'd agreed to provide a DNA sample for testing. It wasn't the Ugandan police officers who'd handled the clothes either. She checked those too. 7 samples were given, but none of them matched. And this wasn't the only thing police missed. Margie discovered that nearly 400 Uganda Wildlife Authority recruits had been training less than 2 kilometers from where Sophia vanished. No one disclosed this publicly. No one cross-checked their alibis. No one questioned them. Now she's saying the whole Ugandan press is unreliable. Articles in the Ugandan media, and not only there, aren't always accurate. Bear this in mind when reading. The same goes for the Ugandan police statements. They usually read as if the police officer is taking dictation. No critical questioning, no probing, no corroboration evidence or statements, so you never know what someone exactly said. Margie writes this with statements like these in mind.
We have also worked with the external investigative teams from Israel.
There's no evidence of this, plus 0 updates on Sophia's case. Every update that comes from the investigation, Sophia's family is funding. Sophia's parents grew angrier and angrier each month, and they never stopped fighting. They spoke to every media channel that would listen, and they tried to snowball Sophie's case to get global attention. So in 2019, they even managed to speak with Uganda's president, Yoweri Museveni, and the First Lady. After their meeting, a new investigation was launched, but it was quickly drowned out by COVID, elections, and internal reshuffling. Momentum collapsed, but Margie did not. She wrote, "If you don't know anything, you can't rule out anything." That's her mantra, and she is not stopping until the person behind that DNA is identified. But here's the thing, even that isn't the darkest theory people are talking about, because the staged evidence and total silence around that night point to something even worse, a sickening pattern people are still refusing to talk about.
Well, how do I get them to shoot me? And just shoot me instead of dismembering me or raping me.
These were the thoughts of Kim and Dott as she was being taken away by 4 men in Uganda. Yeah, this happened after Sophia's disappearance, not that far away from that cursed student center. Kim had taken a trip to Uganda to fulfill her lifelong dream of seeing a gorilla in its habitat. And she got lucky. A female gorilla even touched her thigh on that first day of her trip. Soon after, though, that luck turned to a nightmare. 4 armed men grabbed her and started dragging her away, along with her tour guide, Jean-Paul Remezzo. Kim thought they were rangers, dragging her away from imminent danger.
Armed. They have guns. Looking at them, it became apparent pretty quickly that no, that's not what this is.
The kidnappers used Remezzo's phone to demand a $500,000 ransom from Kim's family. Meanwhile, drones and helicopters were deployed in the park after Kim's fellow safari visitors, an elderly Canadian couple, witnessed the attack and contacted local police. Even President Trump tweeted about the case. But Kim and John Paul had already been taken across the border into the Democratic Republic of Congo. After 5 days of negotiation, a ransom was paid and Kim miraculously made it home. But then again, this was not the Ugandan police's actions. It was Kim's family throwing away their life savings and praying for a miracle. Margie fears it's not different in Sophia's case either, except it's worse. If no one demanded ransom at the time, her fate may be much, much darker than Kim. The forensic evidence at the scene didn't just raise eyebrows, it screamed that something was off. Sophia's pants weren't shredded like they'd been torn by teeth or claws. They were cleanly sliced in deliberate strips and wrapped around branches like someone wanted them displayed. Her underwear was pulled over a tree limb 5 meters high. Her sunglasses and purse were left neatly placed. And then there was the shoe. It was pristine. It wasn't muddy, torn, or thrown in a bush. No, it was just sitting there, like it had been dropped by a person with gloves and an agenda. There weren't any footprints either, no DNA at the scene other than Sophie's own, and one unknown male. Dutch forensic experts were clear this was not a random animal incident. And no, it didn't look like self-harm or mania either. This looked staged. So, staged by who? There are 2 theories right now, and both of them are horrifying. The first is human trafficking. Sophia was alone, foreign, and vulnerable. There were hundreds of park rangers and military recruits stationed nearby. The region has long been plagued by silent trafficking routes. What if she was taken alive? What if she was taken alive? What if her clothes were left to buy time, to make her trail go cold while her captors crossed the border like they did with Kim Endicott? And here's where things get even darker. Uganda isn't just a safari destination. It's been a tier 2 trafficking country for years. According to the US State Department, back in 2008, Ugandan children were trafficked not just within the country, but to Canada, Egypt, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia. Women from Karamoja were sold at cattle markets. Foreign nationals were trafficked into Uganda for labor and work. And cross-border abductions, like Kim's case, were extremely common. Children from the DRC, Rwanda, Burundi were routinely trafficked into Uganda for exploitation. Even in 2023, the Organized Crime Index gave Uganda a 7.5 out of 10 for trafficking risk. The most common form? Silent relocation of children across districts, sometimes with zero government intervention. If Sophia was caught in something like that, her fate would be so much worse than Kim's, because this wouldn't have been for ransom. Margie and her surviving children could hardly sleep at night, thinking of all the horrid scenarios Sophia could be in right now.
Because you are constantly reaching in the dark. Every day you think about her. Where can she be? Is she free? Is she alive? Then why doesn't she contact us? Which gives us the dreadful feeling that she is not free to move.
The second theory is even worse. What if Sophia never left the park? What if someone or a group did their worst to her that night and then used Uganda's corrupt systems to disappear her body and protect themselves? Speaking of corruption in Uganda, it's so bad, people are angry with it but too afraid to speak out for fear that the government will silence them for it. Reportedly, corruption is costing the country around $2.3 billion every year, and several high-up politicians have been investigated for major scandals. What's worse, there are thousands of parents looking for their missing children right now in Uganda to no avail.
I am aware that there are a lot of Ugandan parents who are in the same situation, who have a missing child, especially in the north of Uganda.
Knowing this, it's easy to imagine how Sophie's case was sealed off so quickly. And yet, thousands of people now know about the planted clothing, the clean shoe, the fake animal attack story, the dismissed witnesses, the unlicensed guide, and the missing DNA match. All of it adds up to one sinister outcome. The last time Margie Slickerman saw her daughter, they were sitting at a restaurant in Kampala talking about the future. Sophia had just wrapped up her hospital internship and was glowing. They ate out together 1 week before her disappearance. They laughed and planned what she might do next. Sophia said she loved Uganda. If the hospital had asked her to stay there for 2 more months, she'd agree, she told her mom. According to Margie, there was nothing alarming in Sophia's tone or behavior. She wasn't spiraling or agitated. The last time I spoke with her on the phone in the afternoon of the pitch black day that blew up our lives, she sounded fine. She told me she was on a boat and very much enjoying the trip. 2 hours later, her friend, one of the other Dutch students, phoned Margie to tell her Sophia was in a vulnerable mental state. He said they would all return to Kampala the following day. 2 hours later, she was gone. So yes, Sophia might have been overstimulated, she might have been heading into a hypomanic episode, but she was lucid, articulate, and making plans. So why did the Ugandan press paint her as the crazy girl? Why did they run with that one piece of the puzzle and ignore everything else? Like her high-functioning medical career, her perfect record, her calm phone calls, and future plans? Because it was easier. Because if she was unstable, then maybe no one had to ask who left her clothes in a tree, who planted the scene, or whose DNA was found. Because if Sophia wasn't unstable, then someone else was. Someone dangerous, someone with power, someone with protection. There are still details we haven't seen. New developments have dropped almost every month this year. And now that Michael Kinjambu is finally on trial, there's a chance this case could finally crack open. But here's the darkest possibility of all. Maybe the system didn't just fail Sophia. Maybe it buried her. And maybe the person who knows what happened has been smiling in a Ranger's uniform this whole time.